All right, time to graph. So as far as graphing goes, there's some really interesting ideas here. What I can do, and what are we going to graph? I'm not going to graph the income. We're going to graph the expenses, right? We want to basically have a nice little pie chart. Let me show you the target here. So we're going to have a pie chart that basically, and actually if I maximize it, it's a little bit better, that basically lists off the categories that we have for our expenses. And yeah, and by the way, if you don't know how to read a pie chart, well, I mean, it reads left to right. So basically, these values go like this. Sometimes it's hard when you have multiple shades of green. You're trying to figure out which green is which. Well, payroll, rent, see how they match the colors, inventory, utilities, and so on. All right, so let's get rid of him and start thinking about graphing this thing. All right, so what I'm going to do here to make a graph, it's actually pretty easy. I'm going to highlight the categories. So I'm basically highlighting what I want it to graph. So I'm basically highlighting the categories and then using my control key, I hold my control key down and then I highlight the totals. Do not highlight the actual total, right? Because then, well, it'll be sad for you because you'll actually have the entire total being compared to little pieces of it, which you don't want to have. Now, with that done, I want to then go insert, and there is a beautiful, right there is a pie chart. You got a lot of charts here. I think we're going to do more with them soon, but pie chart is one of the more common ones. So we're going to insert pie chart, and just like that, we pick one. I'm going to pick, oh, what did they pick? I can't remember what they picked. They they didn't do 3D. More pie. No, that's not what they did. I just want that. That's all I want. I just want a pie chart. Okay, let's just do that. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so I got myself a little pie chart. I'm going to give it a cool name, and I can't remember what the name was on the example. So the example was quarterly expenses. So I'm going to go highlight it. You can actually click right in here. Okay, and I'm going to go quarterly expenses. Cool. I'm going to click offside there. Obviously, I can resize it and do that kind of jazz. Another interesting thing, which they did bring up in the book, is if there's a particular piece like inventory you want to highlight, you can actually click once, which highlights the whole chart. Click again. Now I've just got this piece selected and I can actually drag it out, and that's called an exploding pie chart. Very, very, very cool. Okay, great. So now I got myself my little pie chart. I can choose different styles. They actually talked about that a little bit, so I think they did that as one of the styles. What was that? That was style 5. Okay, so they did that. And I think the other thing they did, I noticed by the way, you got a lot of options popping up here, so you can play with those. But another thing they did is they made this thing its own. Um, oh, I can't remember what they did now. I know they made it its own sheet. So let me just struggle for 1 second to see if I can figure that out. One other quick thing, by the way, notice that these two uh, um, new menu options show up. As soon as you click off your chart, those menu options will disappear. So they're only good when they're actually on your options. Oh, was it a right click? Oh, here's where I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose my mind. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly pause the video and try to remember what exactly was going on there. Well, I'm excited. I actually went back to the books and realized there's a couple other things I forgot to tell you. So, but anyways, as far as this goes, remember now when you're on the chart, you get these new options. Um, so sometimes what will happen is you'll forget that you'll be over here, and you'll try to figure what's going on. How come I can't see those options? Well, you got to be on the chart. So chart design, move chart. That's what I was trying to find. So move chart. I click on that. I can move it to a new sheet. I can call the sheet something cool. I tell you what, I'm just going to keep it a chart one for now because then I get to re-talk about making a new sheet. We're going to go OK, and now I got chart one. Notice that I can click here on these sheet names and I can reorganize them if I wish. Okay, you just click and drag just like the other guys. Let's actually get that. This sheet had a name, and its name was not quarterly finances. Its name was, come on, help me out, man. Quarterly expense chart. That's what it's called. Okay. So let's call it quarterly expense chart. All right. So we got ourselves a little chart that'll keep the finance people happy. Okay, so we got that. Let's move back to quarterly finances and talk about a couple of the other things that I wanted to make sure I bring up. So one thing I want to make sure I bring up is that when you click on a bunch of numbers, you get these guys showing up at the bottom, and I can't remember what they were called, but it doesn't really matter. And when I actually was going through the textbook, I did not have maximum. I guess I should probably talk about what these are. So when I select these numbers, it's telling me what the average is, how many of them there are, the maximum, and the sum. When I'm only doing character data, it's only going to show me a count, right? There's no such thing as a maximum. This works both with going down columns or going across rows. Now, I didn't have max in the beginning, and I didn't have it because if I right click, these are some of my options as to how I can basically change the status bar, right? So I have maximum because it's selected. And also notice, by the way, the information's here as well. Okay, so that's cool. Um, that was one of the things I wanted to show. And the other thing I wanted to make sure I show, well, I guess, by the way, I should show about coloring. All right, so you can color these things. There you go. So now we know about coloring. Again, I don't typically do that, but that's fine. Coloring is great. And then the other thing here is accessibility, right? Similar to Word, you want to make sure that your stuff is accessible. And right now it's basically saying it's not accessible because we're missing alt text. If I click on this, what does that mean? It's going to the pie chart. Because how in the world would it read a pie chart? And at this point, I'm just going to say pie chart of expenses. If I go save, now I'm good to go. And this guy is now finished. All right, so that is basically what I'm expecting you to do for the assignment and sort of a quick crack through on this module. All right, and then I'll be now moving ahead. Have fun with this. By the way, Excel, I mean, Word is super important. Excel is definitely a very important office skill. I've been doing something like Excel now since 1986, so it's definitely it's going to be around for quite a while. So it's a good thing to just kind of bone up on and use. All right, so I'll talk to you in the next next recording.